I walked up to the table where my wife was sitting with her lover. It was a crowded cafe, filled with the usual hum of conversations and clinking of cutlery. I felt an odd sense of detachment as I approached them, my footsteps steady, my heart surprisingly calm. My wife, Lisa, looked up, her eyes widening in shock. Her lover, Mark, froze, a forkful of salad halfway to his mouth. I felt a bitter amusement at the scene so kitsch yet so painfully real. "Don't worry, I want to make a scandal," I calmly told her, my voice steady. I pulled out a small envelope from my pocket and placed it on the table in front of them. "Consider this a parting gift." I turned and walked away, feeling their stunned gazes burning into my back. The envelope contained a set of photos and messages, enough evidence to destroy any facade of innocence they might try to maintain. I spent the next few days meticulously planning my next steps. Lisa had been lying to me for months, weaving a web of deceit that I had finally unraveled. She and Mark didn't have any children, which simplified things legally, but it didn't make the betrayal any less painful. Lisa had always been a bit bitchy, especially when things didn't go her way. Her lies were often elaborate, spun with a skill that would have been admirable if they weren't so damaging. I knew confronting her wouldn't be the end. It was just the beginning of a series of unexpected events that would unfold. My mind raced with possibilities. Should I confront them publicly? Should I take legal action? Or should I simply walk away and let karma take its course? As I mulled over my options, I remembered a particular incident. It was a rainy evening, and Lisa had come home late, drenched and frazzled. She spun a tale of a sudden downpour and a broken umbrella, but her story didn't add up. It was the first crack in her carefully constructed facade, and I had ignored it, dismissing it as paranoia. Now I knew better. I started collecting evidence, piecing together the lies she had told me. Late nights at the office, sudden weekend trips, unexplained expenses, everything pointed to her infidelity. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became, but I forced myself to stay calm, to think rationally. I decided to confront Lisa again, this time in private. I needed to hear her admit to her betrayal, to face the reality of what she had done. The next evening, I waited for her to come home. When she walked through the door, I could see the surprise and confusion in her eyes. "Michael, what's just going on?" she asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. "Lisa, we need to talk, and this time, I want the truth." Lisa's face paled as she looked at me. "What do you mean, the truth? What is this about?" I held up my phone, showing her the photos and messages I had collected. "I know about you and Mark. I know about the lies, the cheating. I want to hear you admit it." For a moment, she just stared at the phone, her eyes wide with fear. Then, slowly, she sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. "Michael, I can explain. Explain how you betrayed me, how you lied to me for months." My voice was rising, but I fought to keep it under control. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she began to sob. "I didn't mean for it to happen, it just did. We started out as friends, and then it got out of hand." "Got out of hand?" I repeated, my voice cold. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me?" She buried her face in her hands, crying uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, Michael. I never wanted to hurt you. I was lonely, and Mark was there, and what?" I snapped. "And you decided to throw away everything we had for a fling? How could you be so selfish?" Lisa looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, Michael, can't we work this out? Can we try to fix this?" I shook my head, feeling a cold, hard resolve settle over me. "There's nothing to fix, Lisa. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." I turned and walked away, leaving her sobbing on the couch. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful process, but I also knew that I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed me so completely. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt anger, sadness, and a profound sense of loss. I couldn't believe that the woman I had loved and trusted for so long could do this to me. I spent hours going over everything in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. But it was like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Lisa tried to talk to me several times, but I refused to listen. I needed space, time to think, time to process everything. I moved into the guest room and avoided her as much as possible. One evening, I found myself sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. Lisa came in and sat down beside me, her eyes red from crying. "Michael, please," she said softly. "Can we at least try to talk about this? I know I messed up, but I love you, and I don't want to lose you." I sighed, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over me. "Lisa, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. You lied to me for months. You cheated on me. How am I supposed to get past that?" She reached out and took my hand, her grip desperate. "I know I don't deserve your trust, but I am willing to do whatever it takes to earn it back. Please, just give me a chance." I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes, but also the fear and desperation. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her another chance, but another part of me knew that the damage had been done, and there was no going back. "I need time," I said finally. "I need time to figure out what I want, what we can do. But right now I can't make any promises." Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. Just know that I love you, and I'm sorry for everything." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the turmoil at home. I worked late nights, took on extra projects, anything to keep my mind occupied. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the thoughts of Lisa and her betrayal. One evening, as I was leaving the office, my colleague Sarah approached me. "Hey, Michael, you've been working really hard lately. A few of us are going out for drinks. Why don't you join us?" I hesitated, but then decided that a night out might be exactly what I needed. "Sure, why not?" I said, forcing a smile. We went to a nearby bar, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a little bit of the weight lift off my shoulders. We laughed, joked, and for a few hours I was able to forget about everything that had happened. But as the night wore on, I found myself confiding in Sarah about my situation with Lisa. She listened patiently, offering words of comfort and understanding. "I'm so sorry you were going through this," she said softly, "but you need to take care of yourself too. Don't let her mistakes destroy you." Her words hit home, and I realized that she was right. I had been so focused on Lisa and her betrayal that I had forgotten about myself. I needed to start thinking about my own happiness, my own future. When I got home that night, Lisa was waiting for me. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. "I went out with some colleagues," I replied, not wanting to get into an argument. Lisa nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Michael, I know you are hurting, but please don't you shut me out. We need to talk about this, to figure out what we're going to do." I sighed, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. "I know, Lisa, I just need some time. I need to figure out what is best for both of us." As the weeks turned into months, the tension between Lisa and me only grew. She tried to make amends, cooking my favorite meals, leaving little notes of apology around the house, but it all felt hollow. The trust was gone, and no amount of gestures could bring it back. One evening, I came home to find Lisa sitting at the dining table, a stack of papers in front of her. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes filled with determination. "Michael, I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I think it is time we made a decision," she said, her voice steady. I sat down across from her, feeling a sense of foreboding. "What kind of decision?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I think we should separate, at least for a while. Maybe some time apart will help us both figure out what we really want." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but deep down, I knew she was right. We were both miserable, trapped in a cycle of anger and resentment. Something had to change. "Maybe you are right," I said quietly. "Maybe some time apart will help us both see things more clearly." Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll stay with my sister for a while. It's not forever, just until we figure things out." As she packed her bags and left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Part of me hoped that this separation would help us find a way back to each other, but another part of me knew that this might be the end. Living alone again was both a relief and a challenge. The house felt empty, and I found myself missing Lisa's presence despite everything. But I also felt a sense of freedom, a chance to rebuild my life on my own terms. I started going to the gym regularly, something I had neglected for years. I reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with over time. Slowly, I began to rediscover who I was outside of my marriage. One evening, I received a call from Lisa. She sounded nervous, her voice shaky. "Michael, can we meet? I need to talk to you." I hesitated, but then agreed. We decided to meet at a neutral location, a quiet park, where we could talk without any distractions. When I arrived, Lisa was already there, sitting on a bench. She looked up as I approached, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Michael, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I've realized that I need to make some changes," she said, her voice trembling. "I've started seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I did what I did. I know it's going to take time, but I want to be better, for both of us." I felt a surge of mixed emotions. Part of me was relieved to hear that she was taking responsibility, but another part of me was still wary. "I'm glad you're getting help, Lisa," I said cautiously, "but I need to see real changes before I can even consider giving us another chance." She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. I just want you to know that I am willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." As we sat there talking about the future, I realized that the road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Over the next few months, Lisa and I continued to live separately, but we kept in touch. She updated me on her progress with therapy, and I could see the changes in her. She was more honest, more open about her feelings and her struggles. I also took the time to work on myself, seeing a therapist to deal with my own emotions and to figure out what I really wanted. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was necessary. One evening, Lisa called me, sounding more confident than I had heard her in a long time. "Michael, I think it is time we had a serious talk about our future. Can we meet for dinner?" I agreed, and we met at a quiet restaurant. As we sat down, I could see the nervousness in her eyes, but also a determination to make things right. "Michael, I know I hurt you deeply, and I know that it will take a long time for you to trust me again, but I want to try. I want to rebuild our relationship one step at a time," she said, her voice steady. I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "I appreciate everything you're doing, Lisa. I really do. But I need to know that this is real, that you are committed to making this work." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I am, Michael. I've made mistakes, but I've learned from them. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove myself to you." We talked for hours, discussing our hopes, our fears, and our plans for the future. It was a difficult conversation, but it was also a necessary one. As we left the restaurant, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. There were no guarantees, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we might have a chance to rebuild what we had lost. Lisa and I decided to take things slow, to rebuild our relationship one step at a time. We started going on dates again, spending time together without the pressure of living under the same roof. It was strange at first, but it also gave us a chance to rediscover each other. I could see the changes in Lisa, and I began to believe that she was truly committed to making things right. But I also knew that trust wouldn't be rebuilt overnight. It would take time, patience, and a lot of hard work. One evening, as we were walking in the park, Lisa stopped and turned to me, her eyes filled with emotion. "Michael, I know I have hurt you, and I know that it will take a long time for us to heal. But I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." I took her hand, feeling a sense of warmth and hope. "I love you too, Lisa, and I am willing to give us another chance, but we need to be honest with each other, to communicate openly, and to work through our issues together." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I promise, Michael, I'll do whatever it takes." As we stood there holding each other, I felt a sense of peace. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the right path. The months that followed were filled with ups and downs, but Lisa and I were committed to making things work. We continued to see our therapists, both individually and together, and we made a conscious effort to communicate openly and honestly. There were still moments of doubt, times when the pain of her betrayal resurfaced, but we faced those moments together. We talked about our fears, our insecurities, and our hopes for the future. One evening, as we were sitting on the couch, Lisa turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Michael, do you think we'll ever truly get past this?" I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I don't know, Lisa. But I do know that we are stronger now than we were before. We've effaced our demons, and we've come out the other side. That has to count for something." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I just want you to know how much I love you, and how sorry I am for everything." I leaned in and kissed her, feeling a sense of warmth and love. "I know, Lisa, and I love you too. We'll get through this together." As we sat there holding each other, I felt a sense of peace. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew that as long as we faced it together, we could overcome anything. A year had passed since the day I confronted Lisa in that cafe. It had been a long and difficult journey, filled with moments of doubt and pain, but also moments of hope and healing. Lisa and I had come a long way. We had rebuilt our relationship brick by brick, and although there were still scars, they were a reminder of how far we had come. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Lisa turned to me, her eyes filled with emotion. "Michael, I know we've been through a lot, and I know that it hasn't been easy, but I am so grateful for everything. You've given me a second chance, and I promise to never take that for granted." I took her hand, feeling a sense of warmth and love. "I'm grateful too, Lisa. We've both made mistakes, but we've also both grown and learned from them. We are stronger now than we ever were." She leaned in and kissed me, her eyes filled with love. "I love you, Michael, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you." As we sat there holding each other, watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace and contentment. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew that as long as we faced it together, we could overcome anything. Our love had been tested, but it had also been strengthened. And as we looked towards the future, I knew that we were ready to face whatever challenges came our way together.